An investigation into drug and gang activity results in nearly 3 dozen arrests and allegations the operation used Canada Post to move product. We'll tell you more.
Well, 5 people are facing charges in the death of actor Matthew Perry, including one suspect that investigators are calling the ketamine queen. Those details are coming up.
And the province announces a new plan to tackle childcare costs, with the government unveiling a new funding model. We'll explain coming up tonight.
This is Live at 5. Good evening. I'm Bakari Savage.
And I'm Lena Ladifat. Thank you for joining us here on Live at 5. Our top story this half hour. More than 150 charges have been laid in a drug trafficking investigation Toronto police describe as reaching far beyond the city's borders.
And this is where CP24's crime analyst Steve Ryan picks up the story regarding the details of Project Foxxx. Steve.
Yeah, Bakari and Alina, we heard today that Toronto police were the leads in this very successful project. It was an example of how successful policing can be when there is a sharing of information, when it's intelligence-led. In this particular case, the Toronto police led this investigation. They were assisted by Peel Regional Police, York Regional Police, the OPP, and the Criminal Intelligence Services of Ontario. They are the body that are the ones responsible for funding a lot of these major projects throughout the province. So this couldn't have been possible without their support as well. And as a result of this 11-month investigation, a criminal organization was disrupted and dismantled. The Jamestown Crips are no longer, as a result of this very successful project, which saw 32 people arrested, and we were told today that there are 5 more arrests coming. There was over $1 million in methamphetamines and cocaine seized. 9 firearms were seized as well. And of these 32 people arrested, one of them was a young person. One was 16 years of age. We heard from the deputy chief here at Toronto Police Headquarters earlier today, and here's what we were told.
The Jamestown Crips are a long-standing street gang operating in Toronto. Numerous gang affiliates have been involved in the illegal possession of firearms. Many of these affiliates have engaged in the trafficking of illicit drugs all across Ontario, Manitoba, and Newfoundland and Labrador. Their traffic operations have included the use of Canada Post to distribute drugs in other provinces.
The 9 firearms that were seized, police believe that they all came from the United States and were smuggled into this country illegally. I'll send it back to the desk.
All right, Steve, thanks so much for this. A man is wanted in connection with a deadly daylight shooting early this summer in Scarborough.
So police are asking for the public's assistance to locate 19-year-old Sharmaik Ahmed. Officials say that he's wanted for several offenses in connection with the incident that happened June 15th. He's described as being 6 feet tall with a medium build and black hair. Well, the shooting broke out following a verbal altercation. This is at a shopping plaza near Birchmount Road and Finch Avenue. The victim, a 16-year-old boy, showed up at a local hospital suffering from gunshot wounds. Well, he was later pronounced dead. It's not immediately clear if the victim and suspect knew each other, but anyone with information about this shooting, you're asked to contact police.
2 people have been charged after several Home Depots in the GTA and Southern Ontario were defrauded of over $100,000 worth of merchandise. Police say the suspects had been utilizing Home Depot gift cards, credit cards, as well as fraudulent IDs to purchase a number of items from the stores. The transactions happened between May and July. Hugin's Charles Catt and Melissa Levesque are facing several charges, including fraud over $5,000 and possession of counterfeit mark.
It's 5:04, feeling like 29 outside. Let's get a check on the rush hour with CP24's traffic specialist, Agile NCA. Boy, Aj, I messed up. I said rush hour. Oh, man,
What are you doing? What are you doing? Stop doing that. Trying to get people home. There is just one problem, not as bad as it was yesterday, but an issue worth mentioning. Pretty big issue, actually. So, guys, this is the eastbound lanes of the 401 as you make your way in the collectors through Victoria Park. Now, they keep changing which lane is getting by. Now, just the right. They decided to move all the vehicles into the 2 left lanes. If you can, get to those express lanes to bypass this problem. In the meantime, very slow because of this problem and just because of the big traffic from before the 410. Northbound on the 410, it's getting slower into Brampton, typically slow as you make your way through. And how to look at the Don Valley Parkway, still busiest approaching Bayview Bloor. It does open up once you pass the 401. That camera keeps going out. On city streets, just getting word of a collision blocking lanes in North York on Bathurst and Finch. I'll send it back to you.
This CP24 traffic report is brought to you by 407 ETR. Enjoy the journey with a stress-free commute.
Well, faculty at York University are preparing for a possible strike or lockout.
Yeah, the union says that the school's administration has threatened to unilaterally change the working conditions of professors, librarians, and archivists. UFA says that will degrade teaching, student learning, and research. It says that recent restructuring at both the Glendon and Kill campuses has led to some class sizes increasing tenfold. York and the faculty union, they've been in a strike or lockout position since August 2nd. Negotiations have continued with help from a mediator, but the university says progress has been made on some issues and it remains committed to reaching a collective agreement.
Well, the province says it is moving forward with an updated plan to address childcare costs.
Okay, right now, let's go live to CP24. Sija Liu with more on the ongoing push to implement that $10 a day system in partnership with the federal government. Sija, good evening.
Good evening, Bakari, Lena. This is a new funding program the province announced today. It says this will cover the true cost of providing care for childcare operators. It says under this new funding program, childcare operators won't suffer any losses under the $10 a day program. They will have more flexibility with their spending, and this will prevent closures and give operators more stability. Now, many childcare operators have said they are struggling to keep their doors open under the current structure. Right now, the government covers the amount of money parents are saving on reduced fees, but starting next year, they will get a broader pool of funding that will be based on factors like how many spaces they operate and where they are located. As for parents, the big news for them today is there will be reduced childcare fees starting January 1st. So fees will be capped at $22 a day for children under 6 who qualify under this national program. Since signing the agreement in 2020, fees have already reduced about 50% to about $23 a day right now. Here's more from the Education Minister, Todd Smith, on today's announcements.
It's going to provide the certainty. It's going to provide the stability that these operators are looking for. As a government, we've been delivering with a number of announcements, but today's announcement reduces childcare fees yet again. We're rolling out this new funding formula that's going to save another $300 million for families across Ontario next year. And it's been designed based on that input that's been so important, the extensive input from childcare providers. Prioritizes a simple and easy to administer system.
One thing that was not included in today's announcement was wage increases for early childhood educators, and the NDP is criticizing this along with some of the other announcements today. We'll read you part of their statement. It says the delayed funding formula from Doug Ford and his politicians has put affordable childcare at risk for all of us. Ford promised 86,000 new spaces. We're nearly halfway through the rollout, and only 25,500 have been created. Without raises for our badly underpaid ECEs and childcare workers, will keep losing more of the hard workers who take care of our little ones. So today, the major news for parents is reduced fees starting January 1st, but of course, the full implementation of the $10 a day national childcare program won't go into effect until about March of 2026. Back to you, Lena Bakari.
All right. Sija Liu reporting live tonight. Thanks so much, Sija. It's 5:08, 27 degrees. You're watching Live at 5.
Well, charges have now been laid in the death of actor Matthew Perry. 2 doctors are among those accused of playing a role. We're going to have the very latest in the investigation. That's after the break. And we're learning more about the 5 people now facing charges in connection with the death of actor Matthew Perry. This happened late last year. So officials in the U.S., they say that their investigation involves an underground network of drug dealers and suppliers.
CP24's Lindsay Biscaya joins us live now with those disturbing details. Lindsay.
Yeah, they are disturbing, Lena and Bakari, especially considering some of the people who are now facing charges in connection with Perry's death were presumably very close to him, including his live-in personal assistant, 2 doctors, and a reputed drug dealer known as the ketamine queen. So very disturbing allegations being released today in terms of who supplied Perry with this high level of ketamine that was found in his blood. And for more on the legal side of things, the legal implications, I want to bring in now Trey Lovell, trial attorney with the Lovell firm. Sir, it's good to have you today. Thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so there's so much to go over here. I mean, huge developments just today, especially when you look at some of the people that were involved in this, licensed doctors, for example. How do you see things unfolding from here?
Well, it's a pretty sweeping net. I mean, they charged his physicians, to drug dealers, to the assistant. So they definitely want to spread a wide net. And there have already been, I think, 3 plea deals. So they're really targeting one of the doctors and the main drug dealer, which is the ketamine queen. So it looks like it's going to be focused on those 2, possibly using the others to help the prosecution.
Yeah, as you mentioned already, a couple of plea deals. Let's focus in on those physicians then to start. Licensed doctors, I'm assuming those licenses could be revoked if they're found guilty. What do you expect could happen with them in terms of charges?
Well, I think as they've been charged with, I think, between 8 and 10 counts, depending on the nature of the offense. And I think the doctor's facing up to 120 years in prison, and the drug dealer up to life in prison. So very severe penalties. Certainly, I think the doctor's going to lose his license for something like this. And so the consequences are going to be severe. We're going to see, right now they're going to be arraigned. They're going to enter not guilty pleas. And then the prosecution is going to start. So we'll see what the evidence does. And ultimately, if there will be plea deals that will be for 1 or 2 of those, or they go to trial.
What about the fact that some of these people allegedly tried to cover this up after Perry was found dead? There's reports that the drug dealer wanted to delete all of the text messages between them. There's also, it's alleged that one of the physicians was actually trying to provide a different medical document that was falsified that looked a little bit different. When you talk about maybe covering things up, how significant is that in a case?
It's significant. It goes to the intent side of it. So, these certain wasn't accidental. There was an intent, a knowledge of the harm, a knowledge to try and cover it up, that they knew what they did was wrong. And so a lot of times it goes to certainly the penalty phase. If they're found guilty, because there's a wide array of time that they could serve. If they're trying to cover things up, if they do so intentionally, it could be a more severe punishment. So that's really where that goes to.
And just lastly, when we're talking about such a vast kind of underground network here, do you foresee more people facing charges in the future, or more charges for the people that are already facing charges?
I think this is just the beginning. I think that this is going to not only, lead to more charges within the drug world, but possibly more celebrities or people that are using ketamine and drugs like this. The goal is to use Matthew Perry's unfortunate demise for law enforcement to really stop drug distribution. And it's going on with a lot more people. And so they're inching in on the different levels and different people that are involved. So I think it's just the beginning.
Okay, we'll have to see. Trey Lovell with the Lovell firm. Really appreciate you coming on and giving your insight. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
So there you go, Lena and Bakari. Maybe just the beginning of more charges, but already today, incredibly tragic story from Matthew Perry's death and the people that were, involved potentially in his death. Back to you.
Yeah, and this could be just the beginning. Lindsay Biscaya live in studio tonight. Thanks so much for this, Lindsay. It's now 5:15. 28 degrees is what we're sitting at tonight. You're watching Live at 5.
Just ahead, Taylor Swift returns to the stage. We're going to have more on her first show after a major security scare. Just after the break.
Welcome back. Experts are calling on Canada to do its part to help stem Mpox outbreaks in Africa. This after the World Health Organization declared the disease a global emergency. Infections have surged in Congo, Burundi, Kenya, Rwanda, and Uganda. A new strain of the virus that appears to cause more serious illness is spreading rapidly. Some health experts say Canada should join with the U.S., UK, and Europe to provide a package of vaccines, tests, and medicines for Africa to combat Mpox before it grows into a bigger threat. And Dr. Fahad Razak with St. Michael's Hospital says Canada has to do its part to help contain this virus.
The recommendation is that we join the global effort to provide vaccines in this region. Clearly, there is an outbreak happening which far exceeds anything that we've seen previously with this virus. Some worrying features of it is we're seeing an increasing number of children impacted by it, and mortality rate within children is going up from this. So this is an unusual change in the nature of the virus. It's very different than what was seen in 2022 when the last emergency was declared. And frankly, it is worrying. And Canada does have a role in helping suppress the spread of the virus in the region.
So again, this is a situation officials here at home are watching really closely. And with that, we heard from Canada's Chief Public Health Officer, Dr. Theresa Tam, today. She talked about the situation in this country.
Our outbreak, which involves an Mpox strain called Clade 2B, has been ongoing since 2022. We have, of course, not as many cases as we did in that original rise in cases when we first started the outbreak. But we do have vaccines, fortunately, in Canada, and we have been providing those to provinces and territories.
Now, in 2022, Mpox was declared a global emergency after it spread to more than 70 countries.
Hurricane Ernesto is barreling towards Bermuda, and forecasters expect it'll be in Canadian waters within days. More than 400,000 customers are still without power in Puerto Rico, which was battered by the storm yesterday. Hundreds of thousands are also without water. Ernesto is expected to approach Bermuda late tomorrow and then pass near or over the island on Saturday. It's currently a Category 1 storm with maximum sustained winds of 140 kilometers an hour, and it is expected to gain strength. The Canadian Hurricane Center sees Ernesto moving southeast of Nova Scotia by Monday, but it's still not clear how the storm will actually impact the Atlantic region.
And U.S. President Joe Biden received an enthusiastic welcome to Maryland today in his first public appearance, with Vice President Kamala Harris dropping out of the presidential race. The pair announced price cuts for popular Medicare drugs. Federal officials have reached deals with drug companies to lower the price for 10 of the most popular and costliest medications. It's a landmark deal for the Medicare program, which provides health care coverage for more than 67 million older and disabled Americans.
Too many Americans can't afford the drugs they badly need for life and death. So they skip doses, cut pills in half, forego prescriptions entirely because the prescription drugs are totally unaffordable. For years, Big Pharma blocked Medicare from negotiating lower drug prices. As a consequence, they're able to maintain the exorbitant price increases and the profits are uncalled for. Look, but this time we finally beat Big Pharma.
We finally addressed the long-standing issue that for years was one of the biggest challenges on this subject, which was that Medicare was prohibited by law from negotiating lower drug prices. And those costs then got passed on to our seniors, but not anymore.
So the lower prices will apply to drugs used by millions of seniors to manage diabetes and blood cancers and to prevent heart failures and blood clots.
Well, Vice President nominee Tim Walz has agreed to an October debate with his Republican opponent, J.D. Vance.
Now, the debate's set to take place October 1st on CBS. Vance has yet to confirm his attendance, saying he is likely to attend but needs to walk through the debate rules first. An original date was set for later this month. However, the network says it was forced to reschedule after President Joe Biden dropped out of the race.
Well, a new survey shows that Canadians favor Vice President Kamala Harris over Donald Trump. A survey by Angus Reid finds that nearly 2/3 of Canadians hold a favorable view of current Vice President Kamala Harris. It also found that half of Canadians are hopeful that Harris will become the next president of the United States. Meanwhile, 76% of Canadians were found to hold an unfavorable view of former President Donald Trump.
In other news, Taylor Swift returned to the stage in London today amid heightened security following a foil terror plot in Austria.
More than 90,000 Swifties packed Wembley Stadium as the pop star resumed her sold-out Eras tour. Last week, she was forced to cancel concerts in Vienna due to a terrorist threat. 2 men have been arrested so far by Austrian police. During today's show in London, Swift did not comment on the foil terrorist attack, but some of her fans who lined up early outside the stadium said that they trusted British security officials to keep them safe.
I think it makes you just a little bit unsteady, I think, especially with all the crowds and things, and as much as I'm sure security's like ramped up and things, it does make you a little bit on edge, I guess, with things.
Upon hearing the news from what happened in Vienna, we were a bit scared to come. We were a bit nervous about it after hearing. But then we were researching about it, and we've heard that they will be increasing the security here at Wembley, and they're double-checking everyone. So it made us feel more at ease about that situation.
And Taylor Swift is set to wrap up the European leg of the tour next month. Then she heads back to North America this fall to perform in the U.S., Toronto, and Vancouver.
Right now it's 5:23, 28 degrees, feeling like 31 outside. This is Live at 5.
Coming up, celebrating half a century of the Toronto Zoo. We'll tell you how the popular city attraction is marking the milestone, and that includes visitors in all the festivities. Stay with us. Welcome back. One of the city's biggest attractions is marking a major milestone today.
4, 3, 2, 1.
You know what? That song that you hear in the background is good for any and every kind of party. The Toronto Zoo is now 50 years old. The attraction hosting a special birthday party to celebrate the occasion. That includes animal enrichment activities, free carousel rides for guests, prize giveaways, and a commemorative statue unveiling. The Toronto Zoo CEO, Dolph DeYoung, joined us this afternoon to talk about the special day.
It's been amazing to have the chance to reflect on 50 years of making a difference, whether it's 650 plus Blandings turtles released right here in the Rouge National Urban Park to get that population established, to helping Vancouver Island marmots, Canada's most endangered mammal, have a future, to loggerhead shrikes, wood turtles, Massasauga rattlesnakes, all examples of Canadian species that are raised here, released out there, and have a future thanks to people coming and having a great day at the zoo. A lot of people don't make that link.
The city says the Toronto Zoo is home to nearly 5,000 animals and attracts over 1.2 million visitors per year. Happy birthday, 50 years. That's pretty special.
It's 5:27, 28 degrees. This is Live at 5.
We are learning more tonight about the investigation into the death of actor Matthew Perry. 5 people are now facing federal charges, including the star's assistant. We'll have much more on the story, including reaction, coming up.
5 people are facing charges in the death of actor Matthew Perry, including one suspect that investigators are calling the ketamine queen. Those details are coming up.
An investigation into drug and gang activity results in nearly 36 arrests and allegations the operation used Canada Post to move product. We'll tell you more tonight.
The province announces a new plan to tackle childcare costs, with the government unveiling a new funding model. We'll explain just ahead.
You're watching Live at 5. Good evening, I'm Lena Latifat.
And I'm Bakari Savage. We're learning more about the 5 people now facing charges in connection with the death of actor Matthew Perry late last year. So officials in the U.S., they say their investigation involves an underground network of drug dealers and suppliers.
CP24's Lindsay Biscaya joins us live now with the shocking and disturbing details. Lindsay.
Yeah, Lena and Bakari, I think, we were all expecting further updates on this investigation, obviously, but what's shocking about what was released today, the information, is just how close some of these people presumably were to Matthew Perry. So some of the 5 that are now facing charges in this underground network include his personal assistant, 2 licensed doctors, and a reputed drug dealer who went by the name as the ketamine queen. And of course, ketamine was the drug that was found in Matthew Perry's blood. Very, very high levels of it at the time of his death back in October. We did hear from the U.S. Attorney General for Central California today on the investigation, and many of the law officials are saying it is clear that many of the people who are charged were trying to take advantage of Matthew Perry.
He wrote in a text message in September 2023, quote, "I wonder how much this moron will pay." He also stated in text messages that he wanted to be Mr. Perry's sole source of supply. He wrote in a text message that he wanted to be Mr. Perry's, quote, "go-to for drugs." As a doctor, defendant Placentia knew full well the danger of what he was doing. In fact, on one occasion, he injected Mr. Perry with ketamine, and he saw Mr. Perry freeze up and his blood pressure spike. Despite that, he left additional vials of ketamine for defendant Iwamasa to administer to Mr. Perry.
So really scary stuff, and we know that Matthew Perry was paying a lot of money for these vials of ketamine, much more than what they were actually worth to this doctor. The indictment also shows that when that price became too high for Matthew Perry, that's when he switched his source and went to the ketamine queen. Now, this death back in October was originally ruled by the coroner as an accidental overdose, but that investigation was launched in May because law officials still wanted to see where Perry was acquiring the drugs from, and that's when all of this, all these dark details really started to come to light. We also heard from the administrator of the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration today on these new details. Have a listen.
Matthew Perry's journey began with unscrupulous doctors who abused their position of trust because they saw him as a payday. And it ended with street dealers who sold him ketamine in unmarked vials. The desperation that led Perry to these individuals was not met with help, as it should have been from the doctors. But instead, it was met with exploitation. Exploitation by those who should have guided him toward help. This betrayal of trust is at the heart of this tragedy.
And of course, Lena and Bakari, we've been speaking with some legal experts today who believe this may just be the tip of the iceberg, and we'll have a lot more information, possibly more charges and more people connected coming soon. Back to you.
Just so tragic. Lindsay Biscaya live in studio tonight. Thanks so much for this update, Lindsay. And for a medical perspective now, for a closer look, too, at the drug at the center of the Matthew Perry investigation, let's turn to Dr. Kyle Waldman. He's an anesthesiologist with Humber River Regional Hospital. Doctor, welcome to the program. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to begin with this. As a doctor yourself, how do you react to these developments, the idea that a medical professional would allegedly take advantage of someone who was already struggling?
Oh, it's absolutely terrible. It's exploitation. It's egregious, and it goes against everything that we take an oath for being a doctor. And the idea that you would give a patient a powerful controlled substance to use in their own hands is just ridiculous.
You know, the drug is sometimes referred to as Special K. How and why did this grow in recreational use popularity?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Ketamine used to be, I think, a lot more popular back in the 90s and 2000s, where it was commonly taken as a drug at raves and parties. And then I think right now we're seeing a large resurgence of ketamine. I think a large part of that could probably be due to an increase in crime because, it is a veterinary drug as well. So people do veterinary clinics and get it. But also we are seeing people just use a lot more chemical-based drugs now. As opposed to traditional drugs of abuse.
So along those lines, can you explain, what are the side effects? What do people look like? How do they behave when they're on this? For someone to, someone else to see that this person's using this drug?
Yeah, sure. So it all depends on unfortunately, how much you use and whether or not you're actually getting ketamine versus something you think is ketamine. So in small doses, ketamine can cause hallucinations, euphoria, and that's traditionally why people abused it. Unfortunately, in larger doses, it's a general anesthetic. It's what we use to sedate people or put people right out for surgeries. So it can range from anywhere from, mild hallucinations to full out unconsciousness. And the real danger becomes when you start mixing it with other substances such as alcohol or benzodiazepines, then you can get into trouble with respiratory depression, troubles with your heart, and even death.
As you noted, Doctor, ketamine is an anesthetic. We're now learning that Matthew Perry was using it to treat anxiety and depression in the form of an infusion therapy. That's something a lot of people are doing. We know that ketamine is legal. Obviously, as you said, it really depends on how much you're taking. I want to get your reaction to this, though. An autopsy revealed that the levels of ketamine in the actor's blood were similar to levels used during general anesthesia.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous. Yes, ketamine is a very useful drug for treating pain and depression, but we don't use it in anywhere near the quantity needed to actually generate general anesthesia. And especially, I mean, ketamine should only ever be administered in the presence of a medical professional. It's not a prescription you take home with you. So all of that is just incredible that happened.
Okay, so Dr. Waldman, if we encounter someone who has used, a large amount of this, is this something that Narcan can help, in terms of, what we see when overdoses happen, or is that not going to do anything?
Yeah, unfortunately not. Narcan is specifically for opioid-related overdoses. Ketamine works on a very different receptor in the brain called NMDA. Unfortunately, it would have no use in this population.
Okay, thank you so much for your time and your perspective tonight. We really appreciate this.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you for having me.
Right now it's 5:37, 28 degrees. Let's get a check on the roads as people make their way to places they have to be during this 5 p.m. hour.
Right, we're not going to call it rush hour.
Yes, with traffic specialist Angela and Cia Bois.
Oh, good afternoon, guys. Be happy we're inside. It's slow on the 401 if that is your route this hour. And we are dealing with some brand new problems just popped up about 5 minutes ago. So this is the 401 eastbound. Just as you make your way through Yonge Street, as people try to get to where they need to be, as Bakari says. In the express, it's the two left lanes that are blocked out following this collision. Now, you do want to be in the collectors because I do have a little bit of good news. Eastbound 401 in the collectors at Vic Park. Collision was only allowing one lane to get by. It cleared. My camera through the area froze. We are dealing with problems brand new. This is the 401 westbound in the express past Navis. Stalled vehicle blocking the right lane and shoulder. And another problem to deal with. This is on the QEW as you make your way to roundabout. The exit ramp to third line. Find the left lane of that ramp. It's blocked with the collision. I'll send it back to you both.
Adjoa, thanks so much. More than 150 charges have been laid in a drug trafficking investigation Toronto police describe as reaching far beyond this city's borders.
Well, this is where we turn to CP24's crime analyst, Steve Ryan, with details of Project Foxxx. Okay, Steve, walk us through this.
Well, this was an 11-month project that was headed by the Toronto Police. It was a joint forces operation which included Peel Regional Police, the OPP, York Regional Police, and the Criminal Intelligence Services of Ontario were part of this as well. They are responsible for funding many of the large projects that we hear about when it comes to policing in the province of Ontario. So this project was dedicated towards dismantling and disrupting the Jamestown Crips. This is a criminal organization that operates out of the northwest part of the city in north of Etobicoke, and as a result of this very successful collaborative effort, the Toronto Police advised that they have arrested 32 people. There are 5 more arrests to come within the next couple of weeks, according to police. 158 charges laid, as we said. That includes drug charges, gun charges, and proceeds of crime. They seized $320,000 in Canadian currency. There was over $1 million in street drugs, cocaine, and methamphetamines, and 9 illegal firearms were seized as well, believed to have come in from the United States. We did get reaction from police at this press conference today, and here is some of what we were told. Let's listen.
Gangs operate with a total disregard for the safety and well-being of others. The criminal activities endanger innocent lives and destabilize communities. We are taking decisive action to remove these dangerous elements from our streets. This operation has led to the seizure of 9 firearms, 4.7 kilograms of cocaine with an approximate street value of $568,000, 6 kilograms of methamphetamine valued at approximately $480,000, and more than $320,000 cash in proceeds of crime.
Effective policing of this quantity and quality cannot be done in a silo. It's done when the police services across the country, for that matter, share information. They act collaboratively on that information, and then as a result, we get successful results like today at this announcement here at Toronto Police Headquarters. Send it back to the desk.
All right, CP24's crime analyst Steve Ryan with details of Project Foxxx. Thanks, Steve. Well, police have identified a man wanted in a shooting investigation in Scarborough.
They're trying to find 19-year-old Sharmaik Ahmed. He is wanted for multiple offenses, including discharging a firearm with intent. Police say shots were fired during an altercation involving two males outside a business near Birchmount Road and Finch Avenue on June 15th.
Well, police are searching for a man who allegedly brandished a knife during an altercation in the city's East End. This incident allegedly happened around 6 p.m. Monday near Pape and Cosburn. So according to police, the suspect produced a knife following a verbal altercation. The victim fled the area. No injuries were reported. The suspect is described as a man in his 20s, 5'8", with black curly hair, shaved on the sides and in the back, and a black mustache. Well, anyone with any information has to come forward.
Two people have been charged after several Home Depots in the GTA in Southern Ontario were defrauded of over $100,000 worth of merchandise. Police say the suspects had been utilizing Home Depot gift cards, credit cards, as well as fraudulent IDs to purchase a number of items from the stores. The transactions happened between May and July. Hewins Charles Catt and Melissa Levesque are facing a number of charges, including fraud over $5,000 and possession of a counterfeit mark.
It's 5:42, 28 degrees. This is Live at 5.
Coming up, the next step in tackling childcare costs. We'll have more on how the province is adjusting its funding model in the ongoing effort to make the $10 a day plan a reality for parents. Well, this next story is for parents all over Ontario. The province says it is moving forward with an updated plan to address childcare costs.
Okay, CP24's Cija Liu has more on the ongoing push to implement that $10 a day system in partnership with the federal government. Cija.
Bakari, Lena, this new plan has to do with funding. The province is changing how it compensates childcare operators. So under this new funding program coming into effect in the new year, it says that childcare operators in the $10 a day program won't experience a loss. It will prevent closures and give stability, ultimately covering the true cost of providing care. Now, many childcare operators have said they are struggling to keep their doors open under the current structure. Right now, the government covers the amount of money parents are saving on reduced fees. Starting next year, operators will get a broader pool of funding based on factors like how many spaces they operate and where they are located. Also, for parents today, here's the big news for them. There will also be reduced childcare fees starting January 1st. The fees will be capped at $22 a day for children under 6. And since the national agreement was signed in 2020, the childcare costs have already been reduced by about 50%. Now, the full $10 a day childcare promise won't be fully implemented until March of 2026. Here's more from the Education Minister, Todd Smith, on today's announcements.
I know that there's a willingness to work with the federal government. They have reciprocated that willingness as well. We're looking forward to meeting with the minister next week to try and hammer out some of the challenges that those that are looking to get in to the $10 a day program are facing. And for those that are already in the program, we've provided that certainty that they were looking for today, making it much simpler for them to operate and plan for the new year come January 1st.
We also spoke with the Association of Daycare Operators in Ontario, who acknowledged that this isn't an easy task for the government. And it does say that the federal government system is flawed as well. We'll read you part of their statement. It says, to help reduce wait lists, Ontario has called on the federal government to lift some of the restrictions on new centers opening up, but to no avail. Also, still dealing with an implementation model that filters the federal money through 2 layers of government bureaucracy before it can be used to reduce the fees families pay for care or to increase wages for staff. So still a lot of things that need to be worked out with the federal government for this $10 a day childcare program. But the news today will push that along as fees for parents will be reduced to $22 a day starting in the new year. Back to you.
All right, CP24, Cija Liu live on the $10 a day childcare. Thanks a lot. It's 5:48, 28 degrees. This is Live at 5.
Just ahead, another Canadian airline is grounding its fleet. What that could mean for travelers after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. The country's newest airline is halting operations after just 2 years in business.
Canada Jetline says that it's grounding all flights after being unable to find the financing to keep flying. And the company says that the shutdown is going to be temporary and it plans to file for creditor protection. The announcement comes after 4 executives, including the airline's CEO, resigned. And Canada Jetlines flew mainly to sun destinations out of Toronto, but it has operated just a few planes. This is the latest Canadian airline to cease operations following the shutdown of both Lynx Air and Swoop.
And for more on what this could mean for the cost and logistics of flying here in Canada, we're joined by Wayne Smith. He's a professor and director with the Institute for Hospitality and Tourism Research. That's at the Ted Rogers School of Management at Toronto Metropolitan University. Wayne, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for joining us. So let's begin here. What is up with all these low-cost airlines struggling to take off? Is it something that's wrong with the model? What do you think?
Well, what we're seeing with like inflation, the prices of at home, if you look at your home prices, how much they've gone up, think about how much gas has gone up, think of how much insurance has gone up. Well, the price of the airline has gone up tremendously. The price of airline fuel, the price of airline insurance, and all the costs associated with running an airline has increased dramatically as well. But the revenues haven't kept up because they haven't been able to raise prices to match sort of the increase in prices.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, continue?
No, go ahead, please.
Okay, aside from that, what are we supposed to do as consumers, as people who want to fly to vacations when, you know, there are only a certain amount of limited choices that we have when it comes to air travel, which, you know, we look at economics here, supply and demand, and then, you know, just the options that are there or not there?
Well, this is always going to be a problem with a country such as Canada. We're so geographically large, but population relatively small in the world scale. So you have to have the volume in order to travel. The reason why the budget airlines work so well in Europe is that you have a large population in a small geography. You know, and even in the States, they fly hub to hub. We don't have that advantage here in Canada, so it makes it very difficult for a budget airline to really make sure. You have to do something like Porter has done, where it has really cherry-picked certain routes that are going to be profitable and do well.
So less competition often means higher prices. What do you think this means for the average flyer?
Well, you're seeing a big readjustment in the whole airline industry, as you've seen sort of with contract negotiations with the big airlines. You're also seeing different airlines going under or having to go through bankruptcy protections. This is going to be, the next 5 years is going to be very challenging for the airline industries to try to survive and remain competitive. You're actually probably going to see prices rise in the next few years, mostly because, as you said, less seats equals more demand, but also means they can charge higher prices. And you're also going to see more hidden fees. So you'll see more things like, oh, if you bring on a purse, we're going to charge you extra dollars, because they can't really raise the price that you see. They have to raise revenues through those ancillary fees.
Okay, with all that, does any new low-cost carrier stand a chance at survival?
There's an old joke in the industry: if you want to make a billionaire a millionaire, buy an airline.
Huh. Wow.
It is one of the sure ways to lose money generally. There's a reason why a lot of the airlines, when they were first founded, were actually government entities. Like Air Canada used to be run by the government. And the reason why was the profitability of them is always suspect. You know, you've seen airlines, Air Canada, you know, after 9/11 didn't make money for a bunch of years, then made money. Then 2008 happened. They didn't make money for a couple of years. Then they had a really good heyday. Then they had COVID. So they had 2 years where they didn't make anything. Now they're back to being sort of okay. So, you know, and it wouldn't take much for the airlines now to have another big drop too. And, you know, if you think about those planes, each one of those is $10, $20 million worth of revenue just sitting there for a plane.
Okay, Wayne Smith, professor and director with the Institute for Hospitality and Tourism Research. Thanks so much for your perspective on this. We appreciate your insights tonight.
Yeah, thanks, Professor. All right, it's 5:55, 28 degrees. This is Live at 5.
After the break, a heartwarming update to a story we brought you just a few days ago about a fundraising walk to help students. Stay with us. We leave you tonight with an update to a story we brought to you earlier this week on CP24 about a young man and his friend who went on a fundraising walk from Toronto to Niagara Falls.
Argonauts GM Michael Pinball Clemens and his family, they saw it and they decided to help.
What you have done for the young people in your neighborhood is outstanding.
That was Diane Clemens. She posted on her Instagram that their foundation would match donations with a minimum of $5,000. Trayvon Douglas and his friend Pius Adu Ardarqua, they walked 134 kilometers last weekend to raise money for back-to-school supplies for kids in the Lawrence Heights community.
What a great story, and it keeps going. I love that so much. So great for them to pick this up. 5:59, 28 degrees. You're watching Toronto's breaking news, CP24.
Thank you for watching. CTV News at 6 is next.